Welcome to another episode of Hain't No News. This is episode 3. Episode 2 left off on December 18th in the AM. So picking up from right there, headed in towards the PM. There's a couple good podcasts I like on Sundays, and a few of them. But in the afternoon, there's the Chip Chipperson podcast. And that one is just for fun. That is one that Jim Norton does it in the character of Chip Chipperson, has good guests on there. It's always just a funny podcast. And that's all that one's about. Not a whole lot to talk about there, except that's an enjoyable podcast for some people. Some people enjoy it. I'm one of them. Beyond that is another episode of the RAP podcast with Luis Gomez and Zach Amico. Now, that's a 3-time-a-week podcast. Usually about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes per episode. Sundays was excellent, and I did a clip video of it, and we'll discuss that later. Because that wasn't today, I made the clip video of it. So then, heading into the beginning of the week, on Monday morning was the Jim and Sam Christmas gift exchange episode as they were headed in towards Christmas break. The highlight of that, of the gift exchange part, was Soraya, who is she was formerly an intern. She began her career there with Jim and Sam as an intern. Young, sweet lady. She made Jim a jean jacket with a lot of patches related to his interest and stuff like that. It was really a cool gift. And, you know, she is sort of, a lot of listeners, myself included, we've developed sort of a big brother crush on Soraya type. Not say big brother crush because we know she's too young and sweet for us. So we fancy ourselves as protectors of her or something like that, you know. Now imagine, keeping in mind, this is only healthy as long as you're able to separate imagination from reality, and clearly I am. So that is something that, that's all that is imaginary crush on Soraya and the nice gift that she made for Sam. And that was Monday morning. Now, then on Tuesday was the Flagrant podcast. Now, they just got back from Morocco. They've been covering the soccer ball matches that they've been having out there. And they were talking all about that, and border crossings and stuff like that, and the different boundaries that divide. And, meanwhile, here in America, there's been border crossings at a record rate on the southwest border. And I happen to know some things about borders here in America. Let's turn back the annals of history to October of 1997. I myself caught a ride all the way from Strasburg, Virginia, all the way down to San Antonio, Texas. One ride, all from a guy who was a Jamaican guy who was headed to San Antonio, and his life dream was to be a cowboy. So that goes to show that no matter what your beginnings in life are, that doesn't dictate what your interest and future will be, because that's where he was headed, wearing a cowboy hat and the whole 9 yards, coming from New York City, because that's where he immigrated into America at, was New York, and he's traveling down for this job he's going to begin in San Antonio. And when I got dropped off by two friends there by the highway, I-81 in Virginia, he was the very first vehicle that came by. So the very first vehicle, I hadn't been on the highway for 10 minutes or so before I got my ride all the way to San Antonio. But once out of the vehicle in San Antonio, I was actually headed on over to San Diego. And, so I still had a long ways to go. But at least I was out of the cold, because this was late October already at this point. But down there in San Antonio, I needed some money. Some money would have done me some good. So I went and I got in line at a day labor place. But I couldn't get work because I didn't have my driver's license and social security card, because that was necessary to start work. So I ended up hitching on over to Tucson, Arizona. It's got me a good bit closer to San Diego, but still not San Diego, where I was ultimately headed. And there, once again, I tried another day labor place, and once again, because I didn't have driver's license and social security card, I couldn't work. But I was told that if I went up the road, there was pickup trucks that would come and pick you up, and you could go work for $40 a day. So $40 a day would have been fantastic. It's more than enough to eat with, and when you're in a warm place like that, you can survive, because you can sleep outside, and you're okay with $40 a day. You can get on your feet that way, sort of, so to speak. But I went up there to do that, and it was all dark-skinned Hispanic people, which person would assume would be Mexicans, but who's to say? They could have been Guatemalan or whatever. But anyhow, when the pickup trucks came, they see me, a white guy, and with these other people, and no go. They wouldn't take me with them. So I was denied the opportunity to work based on documentation. And then I was denied the illegal work because they was afraid I was spying on what they were. They was afraid I was, maybe a federal agent coming to spy them out and bust them for hiring illegal workers. So I couldn't do the legal work or the under the table work, as two different boundaries. One boundary being, so we're talking about borders is what got me on this subject. So you have the border of the United States, but within this border, I was kept out by the borders of paperwork from work, and then I was kept out from the borders of race for work. So okay, that was 2000, and I learned a lesson there. You have to have your documentation with you as an American. So flash forward to 2008, with this knowledge in my head and realizing that these day labor places do exist. As long as you got that identification, you can go in and get you some day labor. So I was on my way up to Alaska to work, but I had days turned out I'd missed a season, so I got out there and I had missed the Dungeness crab season, so I had to wait for a Pelio season, which was a couple months away. So the months of November and December, I had to survive there in Seattle before I could go up to Alaska. And fortunately, I knew about this day labor stuff. Well, I got labor work on, it's called Fire Watch. That's when you watch welders for the hot lava-like melted metal, make sure it doesn't start fires on ships, because they have thousands of gallons of diesel fuel that if that would light, it'd catch the whole sound on fire there in Seattle. So every welder had to have a Fire Watch person with them. But now the welding crew I was working with, one of them, the night shift welding crew, they were all Spanish-speaking people. They were all on a 2-year work visa that something that Bush put into effect, that people could come from mainly Latin American countries, but other countries, to work here in America, and they make a lot of money by their relative terms. Now, these guys were making like $30-some an hour. These aren't like hedge trimmers that are working, or guys that are working on the table on a 2-year work. Now, why that was beneficial to big companies is because so many people in America were getting hurt on the job, and companies were having to pay out a lot of workman's comp for people who were injured on the job, which was the same reason day labor was possible. Because, see, you get injured working through day labor, your employer only owes you for that day because you're just working on a day-to-day basis. Whereas these skilled workers, as they were, welders, they were making the same wage that American welders would make, but they didn't have to worry about them drawing workman's comp for 20 years. And plus, they were more eager to do the job because they're taking that money back to a place where that $30 an hour is equivalent to $200 an hour or more. I know that because then I did go on up to Alaska, where I worked with the crew, ended up being on a crew with all Hispanic guys up there, because those are guys that I seem to get along with, because I can sort of relate to feeling like an outsider and having traveled around, stuff like that, and knew enough of the language to pick up on it a little bit and understood. I don't know, just got along with these people real good. And but there, my friend Victor from Chile, he was telling me he was going to go back. Now, during those couple months up there, we made about $7,000 we was going to take home with us. Well, he was going to go back to Chile and buy him a brand new Ford Mustang. And that just blew my mind, that the same amount of work that we both put in, say, in America, was going to be enough money to buy him a brand new vehicle, an American vehicle at that, and for me it wasn't. So these are just some things to keep in mind when you consider why people want to come to America to make the money. It's not necessarily that they believe America is a better country, and it's not necessarily that they want to live here. It's just that they have such a bigger, it's such a more beneficial day's work that they put in here than it is for an American to put in the day's work here. And that's some things that maybe we could fix. And anyhow, that was the Flagrant podcast. So that was Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, there was another RAP podcast that evening. Now, Tuesday, though, that was the day I ended up making a clip video of Sunday's RAP podcast. And by Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, it had hundreds of views. So if I was ruled by numbers and led to do things based on numbers, I would know that my video should be another one of those that doesn't show my face, where I'm clipping the work of some other people and editing it in and making putting a theme to it. But that's not what I'm here doing, even though supposedly these Hain't No News videos nobody's watching or paying attention to. But I'm fighting the good fight here, and that's what I'm trying to do, because I feel that these are truths and information that need to be out there. And somebody else who's fighting the good fight, as I see it, is Tucker Carlson. And I'm glad to see that he's getting a lot of information out. I'm worried for him. I worry how long he's going to be able to get that information out, because I know that there's a lockdown on the truth. And I was happy to see that Joe Rogan picked up on and rebroadcast his take on the JFK assassinations and possible CIA involvement, and why the the documents haven't come out on all that. I was glad to see Joe Rogan aided in the good fight there with that. And Joe Rogan's aided in the good fight in a lot of ways, a lot of times, but listen, anytime you become a source of information, I'm small enough that I can basically be shut up and locked out altogether. And even my own children probably fear that, believe that I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I should be following dollar signs, and that would be the most beneficial thing to them. But I do feel that there will be no good future for anybody if we give in to this cover-up of truth and information. And so I believe right now the best thing I can do for the future of everybody is to fight for the truth to be told. Ain't no news till the next no news. Later.